is a rule. To some height, and I don't want to be the one to take this convention to some depths. I believe to speak of status of rabbis and rabbonim and it must begin right here. And if I have not learned anything else, this is the thing I did. That one must speak in the presence of an older colleague with unusual restraint and with much reservation. I believe this is the aleph base of our rabbinic shulchan and our and this is why I think it to be a tremendous responsibility to speak of the of Orthodoxy in America is not an easy assignment. And one who cannot lean upon it, he has to judge the present behavior with his own very limited and confined resources. And I once heard from a Godel, he said, Eizehu Chochom Hareyes Hanilot. And of course, the popular and the literal translation is, he can foresee the consequences, the future consequences of a given act. This Godel said to me, it means something else. Eizehu Chochom Hareyes Hanilot. To be able, to have the capacity to assess and evaluate at the moment something which has happened, something which has developed, something which was created. For this too you need a chacham. Not everyone can evaluate that which happens even in the very near, in the immediate presence with you. I was thinking on the way here, and I have traveled some 500 miles to be at this convention. And when I say 500 miles, I cannot help but think of a great American statesman when he came to Moscow, Cordell Hall, and Molotov met him at the airport. So Cordell Hall turned to him and he said, "My dear Mr. Molotov, I'm an old man. I traveled all the way from Tennessee to Moscow to meet you. Wouldn't you come at least halfway to meet me? And in the same way, I plead with you. I don't have any special schusim, but try to tolerate me for the few moments. I have traveled a long distance, and I had an opportunity to think and rethink some of the things I am going to share here with you now." Included within my thinking was, what are some of the advantages of this conclave, of this convention? There are many advantages, and it is impossible and not necessary to cite them. But I like to mention two which appeal to me very much. Number one, I believe that just as we begin every year from Bereshis, in order to see whether we are loyal and true to the roots and to the echo and to our basic divine assignments, in the same way we return here to assess and evaluate, to see whether we are proceeding on our various destinations in accordance with that plan, with that design, with that image which was given to us at our beloved yeshiva. Number two, I thought, and this is something which I heard from my father, Zichreini Livrocho. He said, "Vaya Yaakov espnei Lavan, vehine einenu imo tismeil shilshon." Lavan, when he appeared to Yaakov, he was something of a strange creature. Here Yaakov came from the ideal environment of the home of Rivka and Yitzchak. He came from the yeshiva of Shem Va'eva. He came from a sacred and ideal environment. And here he saw Laban, who was the symbol of that which was ugly and vulgar and detestable. So when Yaakov saw Laban for the first time, he could never make peace in his mind that he could accept such a creature. But as he proceeded to be his neighbor, he gave in a little bit. He forgot something of what happened there, and as time passed by, he was frightened, and he said, I see something has happened to me. He said, Laban, who appeared to me so negative and so impossible when I came here some 20 years ago, now I can tolerate him. I can talk with him business. I can reach understandings with him. There must be something wrong with me. To take us back to the image and to the echo of the yeshiva, and to remember that a certain concept and a certain sense of values must be preserved in its pristine form in order to be loyal and to be faithful to a certain assignment. How are we to regard the challenge of these days right here in the American Jewish community, on the American scene? I believe that perhaps there was the Taylor Shebalpeh, Eze Shemas. He said, now is the moment that Hol Ma'asecho Ba'Sefer Nichtovim. This is the third cycle in Jewish history. In this way, if I may paraphrase the interpretation of this Mishnah, I should like to say, when the immigrant came here from Eastern Europe, when he came from Wilno and from Pressburg, with him Yahadus was Ayin Reye. He spoke of what he saw, what he experienced, what he saw in Ramayles Esplois, what he saw in Slabotki in the Musa Stibel of Reb Yezel, or of Reb Notehirsch, or of the other Reb Ale Musa. He spoke constantly of Ayin Reye. His son who was born in St. Louis or in Detroit or in Pittsburgh, with him it was Eisen Shemas. He did not see that wholesome, Torah-centered and God-intoxicated existence. But with him it was Eisen Shemas. You cannot exist long with Eisen Shemas. We have reached a stage, you and I, that Hol Ma'asecho, when our own Ma'aseh has to be Ba'Sefer Nichtovim. Now we have to write our own chapter, and we have to fill in our own role without depending on that which has preceded us. When I say depending, to depend in a total way for it. Now, if one would ask any one of us, and I do not claim to be, God forbid, in a special position here, in a unique position, to evaluate the Orthodox position. Perhaps I have served 20 years in the same community ever since my ordination, and if God blessed me with some meager achievements, I do not take the credit to myself. It was a Yaitzir Shmael, and I'm very grateful to God. But any one of us who would be asked at the moment to speak, how does Orthodoxy look in America today? He would have a twofold answer, perhaps. One would be statistical, practical, pragmatic. The other one would be socio-historical. In order to have a full frame, a full image, you must approach both sides of the story. The statistical approach, superficially speaking, will assert to you, and some of these things can be challenged, and most likely will be challenged, that we have today in America some 2,500 or 3,000 Orthodox congregations and shulchlach and shtiblach which are identified as Orthodox. We can speak perhaps of some 2,300 Orthodox ordained rabbis. I mean of the 3 or 4 different rabbinic organizations. We can speak superficially of 1 million or 1.25 million of members affiliated or in some way connected with these synagogues. Pridefully we can speak and with joy. This is really the greatest achievement, the triumph of Torah Judaism in America, the All Day School movement. 50 or 53,000 in some 280 All Day schools. We can speak with joy of yeshivos beyond New York, whether it is Philadelphia, Baltimore, St. Louis, or Boston, or Los Angeles, or Cleveland. It makes no difference. We can speak of the influx of the immigrants, and I believe that they have had a positive effect, a positive influence upon the destiny of Yahadus in America. Some of you may disagree, but I, in my humble thinking, I believe that they are a tremendous asset. They are Mesiras Nefesh. They are Standhaftigkeit. Although they may not have a full and a complete concept of the American scene and the Anglo-Saxon civilization challenge to us, but at the same time, I believe they are a tremendous asset for us. We have more Shemrei Mitzvos. We have now Shemrei Shabbos between the age of 20 and 40 are beginning to outnumber those between 45 and 65. Our Union of Orthodox Jewish Congregations of America will tell you that kosher food and kosher certification is now much more in demand by some of the leading national firms in America. And they will cite to you a number of other assets. But again, I say that these can be challenged. But let us remember, also lireis negoim and sume potomelion. You cannot see a one-sided picture. You have to see something else which goes on the American scene. What are some of our weaknesses? What are some of our liabilities? And I like to give them in the following number, not necessarily in the number of importance. Number one, we have an overwhelming number of people with minimum personal religious commitments. Number two, the standards among our congregations and rabbis are variegated, and they are rather very much different, quite often to the extreme, one from the other. We have a preponderance of religious illiteracy among our Balabatim. The freelancer is still a serious challenge and a very painful embarrassment to us. And we still have not done enough to see to it that the freelancer should be confined and he should be limited. We have another problem, fragmentization. And I know some of you will agree with me, and some of you will not find sympathy. What do I mean by fragmentization? I believe something has been mentioned here about the Ben Yeshiva as a balabos. This is a painful problem to a number of our Chaverim. Some of us who are facing a challenge in different communities, and I've spoken in a number of your communities here. We know that if we would have a balabos with a Torah background, a Shema Mitzvos, a person who is articulate, and he is at a meeting of our board, or a general meeting, and a problem of mechitza comes up, or whether introducing some changes in the services, he could be of a tremendous help to the rabbi. Instead, what happens in St. Louis, and what happens in Pittsburgh, I don't know whether it happens in Detroit or in other cities, when they come in, either as a research scientist, or as a practicing lawyer, or as a physician, immediately they tend to create a shtibel. To create this shtibel is anti-Jewish. It is anti the very interest of a growing Torah-minded Jewish community. And they are the ones who fragmentize. They state it on Sudavnim in the Andere Eden. Where is the spirit of being a missionary? Where is the spirit of one balabos trying to create another Shemer Shabbos e balabos? As we have spoken about these programs occasionally here from this platform, but they make shtibla. But something else. I don't have to reveal here and pledge allegiance to Yeshiva University every time I rise to speak. I want to say that I am extremely proud that I had the privilege to be a Ben HaYeshiva. And I never miss to mention my identification with Yeshiva University, whatever may be the occasion. Incidentally, we just installed in our main synagogue artistically prepared stained glass windows. We were, I believe, the first synagogue in America to have a large window dedicated to Yeshiva University. Artistically created something beautiful, and I felt that this will, in a way, help Balabatim. It will remind them of Yeshiva. It will remind youngsters who become Bar Mitzvah. Yeshiva would be part of the synagogue, of the concept in our community. So I don't have to pledge allegiance, but I believe that one, because he is loyal, he should not fear that he will be misunderstood or misinterpreted. I believe we are speaking amongst Chaverim. And if I would have to get up here and always make a mishaberach, I would definitely refuse to do it. Where are some of the areas where our own beloved yeshiva can do a little bit more and a little bit better in order to raise the prestige and the authority and the effectiveness of the rabbi? And here is where the area comes, among others. Number one, I believe that we are guilty of having exaggerated the role of the Shema Mitzvos, who happens to be a PhD, a scientist, or a doctor. I think we went out of bounds with tremendous emotion to give him mishaberachs and honors and recognitions. And when you do this, indirectly, psychologically, you undermine in the heart of a youngster the image of the Talmid Chacham, of the Lord, of the future in Rabbanus. He sees that so much attention is centered on this one. Something else you're doing wrong. You display a certain sense of insecurity and inferiority complex, as if you need a hastoma for the Shulchan Aruch and the Torah for one who got his PhD, and you play him up to the widest degree. And especially when this fellow who is accorded all the recognitions and all the honors by different Orthodox organizations in our country, he is the one who many times deliberately undermines the position of the Ben HaYeshiva in his synagogue and in his community with devious ways and with devious manners. And we are speaking from experience. I know that none of you would ask for any names or any particulars, and even if you would be asked, you would ask, it would have never been given to you. And I believe that this romance and this impassionate playing it up, it must stop as soon as possible. Because you show a disparity between the Talmid Chacham and the one who is a Shema Mitzvos, and he branches off to another field. And I believe this is a gross exaggeration, a very unrealistic behavior. So I believe this is one of the points which we ought to consider here today. Number two, there isn't a single Ben Yeshiva here who is not proud when we hear of Yeshiva adding another building, another department, another school, another college. We feel part of it, and we are so proud. But as a result, what is happening? As a result, here is what happens. I'll give you experience from my own community. Before the high holidays, before Yom Kippur or Rosh Hashanah, a certain institution, a national institution, puts out an announcement in the New York Times full page about a certain ethical, rabbinic, or Torah concept of a deep religious nature. So they become the spokesmen of the ethical norms in labor and in business. We keep on talking about a school for retarded children or a school for advanced physics or mathematics. Nothing wrong about advanced physics or mathematics, but the time has come when Yeshiva, with the prestige which it has in the academic community, must come up and glorify Torah and mitzvot. I, for one, would be proud if I would open the New York Times and see a full-page announcement with taste, the way Yeshiva University can do it, about Shmira Shabbos, about kashrus, about this or that concept in the Tayyag mitzvot. It means giving kavod la Torah. It means being realistic about a certain challenge and about a certain problem. I don't want the semi-reformed spiritual leader in my community to needle me constantly. You see, when it comes to business ethics, when it comes to popularizing this concept of the Torah, it is we who are doing it. True, you people are doing a wonderful job about the retarded children in Harlem and so forth. Now, this is something which we have to consider very seriously. This is the time when we must include those things in our own deliberations. Another item, one of our weaknesses is, I have here a number of these, but I will not mention all of them because time is limited. We are victims, in a sense, of the tremendous impact of environment. And we have a danger, we are facing a danger of being co-partners in a pagan sort of Judaism which is developing in our own communities, in our own synagogues. What do I mean, a pagan kind of Judaism? By this we mean the Ritz de Passage. We mean that the pagans were very sensitive about certain moments of certain occasions in life of transition, whether it was puberty rites, whether it was the funeral, or whether it was the wedding, whether it was this personal experience or another. And as a result, we are beginning to confine and we are playing up and exaggerating these experiences, and it becomes somewhat of a pagan rite. Something else, we are including, as the ancient pagans, a civic kind of religion. A civic kind of religion, what do I mean? I mean on the Roman pattern in ancient Rome and Greece, where an ethnic division tried to display and make certain its identification by observing this kind of a tribal or group or racial festival or another. With us, Hanukkah, and with us, Pesach, with our innocent acquiescence, is becoming, little by little, it is emerging as a civic religious experience of the ancient pagan. And we are part of it innocently. And this is something where we must call a halt. We must think about it. We must present the image of a mitzvah in its entirety. It must be complete. It must be wholesome. And I am sick and tired to hear certain people here or at the RCA convention getting up with a rational approach. I was privileged to live in the home of the Prophet Chaim 13 months. And I know that Yankel the Schmidt, who did not read Aristotle's Ethics or Spinoza's metaphysics, whatever it might have been, when he said Matebu, and when he said Hineni Mucham before a mitzvah, everyone, even a Bentero, he was moved, he was deeply impressed. We are exaggerating the need and the necessity of going to the philosophical and metaphysical and using a terminology, and some of us are melting away in a melting pot to imitate things which we can never be and which we shall never be. And our people, even those who have the PhDs in science, let me tell you, I have a number of them in our congregation. They never go into me with a philosophical discussion of it. Rabbi, can you do this on Shabbos? Why can't you do it? He wants a motel in the Mishnah, in the Shulchan Aruch. Rarely will we go into it. And something else? One who keeps on indulging in playing up this philosophical and this rational, he fails to understand the status of the intellectual standards in America today. He forgets that you may have a PhD in physics or in chemistry, and he may be completely and illiterate in the fine arts, or in literature, or in philosophy. Und es geht darum, dass wir eine linke Pässe zu debattieren wegen Zizes in einer philosophischen Weg, in einer spinozischen Weg, in einer aristotelian Weg. Das ist mannisch Narrischkeiten und Teachers. I do not say that a rabbi should not be equipped. In a moment when he is asked about it, he should be well prepared. But this is not the emphasis. We can tell it to you. Many of us rabbis will tell it to you from our own experience. What do we do? Again, if I may cite my own personal experience, I in my shul, ever since I came, and I believe in a way this is a Kiddush Hashem, from the first week I came to Shari Torah, I instituted a chevra to learn Mishnah Berurah Eira Chaim in the morning. I still do it. This is the 21st year. I instituted to learn Mishnayos with them before Mincha. I still do it. I instituted between Mincha and Ma'ariv to have a discourse of Jewish values and of Jewish practices for the Avelim who say Kaddish, so that they will not find the Kaddish a congenital burden upon themselves, but rather a rewarding experience. We are doing this. I instituted 20 years ago as the rabbi on Sunday. And this is really a very hazardous proposition, but it's rather exciting. It has its rewards and its dangers too, and we still have it. We have series of lectures every year. What are our series of lectures? 7 great eras of halakha, 8 pillars of Hasidism, the Musar movement, faith and creed in Judaism, the wisdom of the Talmud. We have it successful to such an extent, and I'm happy that a certain colleague of ours is not here, that I have now invitations from 2 Reform temples and from 3 conservative places to give lectures on these things in their places. And don't be afraid, not in their services nor in their sanctuaries. It is done in the social hall. And I was criticized incidentally by a colleague of ours, Poupko. I read about you, and I was called by a leading Reform rabbi who is nationally known to participate in a symposium, Orthodox, Conservative, and Reform Judaism. And I came there. We had over 1,500 people in the hall. So later on I received a letter from one of our colleagues. I read that you spoke in this temple. You know what my answer was to him? I said to him, when I would cross a bridge and I would see a Jew drowning, or any person, I would not shout down to him, if you will kindly move to another river and you will drown there, then I will jump down and save you. But if you're drowning here, I cannot save you. I feel wherever he meets the challenge, there is our responsibility to come and expose him to that which is authentic, that which is qualified, and that which is wholesome. And this is why we do it. When they accept, when they invite us, we go. And let me tell you something. Not a single Reformed or conservative man spoke in Shari Torah since 1942. And you can check out in Pittsburgh on it. I still know to speak in their places, but I never found the necessity to reciprocate and to call them back to my place. But I have done it, and thank God we have succeeded in those things. Why is it that some of us are so sensitive and concerned about our condition, the condition of Orthodoxy today? And we should be concerned. I'll tell you why. In Pittsburgh, as you know, we have 4 universities and colleges. And we have Westinghouse and the Mellon Research Institute. We have in our universities now 3,200 Jewish students. May I tell you something which happened? We send out a questionnaire to them, and we ask how many of them want kosher food, Pesach food for Pesach. 43 answered that they want. Out of 3,200. Now you draw your own conclusions. It isn't a matter of accusing this branch of Judaism or another. I am speaking here of a condition which is prevalent in our place. And I don't believe that we are so much different from others. I was invited in a certain place on the campus to give a lecture, and I met the director, the Hillel director there. I found out that he was less than a Reconstructionist.